It's a catastrophe.
Cat distracted.
I was catatonic.
So, Shawn, explain yourself, because this is not something from the hat.
No, this is not something from the
This
hat.
was,
Or is it?
This is a recent release, or upcoming release. I don't know. I got my copy. It is a recent release from Severin Films of the Canadian classic film, The Peanut Butter Solution. And I have been excited about this for months.
Right.
As soon as I heard that this was coming out on the glorious Blu-ray format, I've just been excited. This is a movie that I saw way too young. I mean, I guess I was the target audience for this film at the time.
Yeah, I guess.
well, it said that this is not just Severin, but it's Severin Kids.
Yes,
so
it
it's
is. It is the debut release in the Severin
I was going to
Kids
say, like, there's
catalog.
a thing.
Yeah. Cult movies that are geared towards children.
Okay.
Or were intended for children.
Right.
Yeah, and this was what they used to pop that cherry, and man, is it the perfect
Oh, yeah.
movie to
yeah.
do so.
No doubt. Like, yeah, because, like, you know, doing a little bit of reading on this, it seemed to be like a pretty universal, like on IMDb, all the reviews were like, I saw this movie as a kid and it scared the hell out of me and nobody else had ever seen it. And, you know, and nobody's ever heard of this movie and what the hell, it gave me nightmares. And boy, I can see that.
Yeah.
It's
such a bizarre film that I know I've heard other people say that I saw this as a kid and I couldn't remember the name of the movie, or I couldn't remember what it was. I rememred a basic outline of the plot. I told my friends and they're like, bullshit, that movie doesn't exist. It's not a real thing at all.
Yeah, right.
And it's easy to understand why. I mean, it is a children's tale that's genuinely just nightmarish when you think about what the actual plot is.
Well, and it wasn't even like the plot as much, because it did remind me, and I brought this up while we were watching it, of something like a kid's, like almost like a How to Eat Fried Worms, right? You know, kind of like this crazy kid story that, you know, that you would have read in like 5th grade, 4th grade. But then it's like, as you get into it, like it's like the imagery, and it's like this, I don't know. I kept wondering, it was like, is it because it's Canadian? Like, is it like the French thing? But there's like some really, really frightening imagery in this film. I mean, I think about like the dream sequence, and there's like dogs pulling at his hair, and you know, just the idea of the fright, and like even like when he goes in there and it's like got like the image of like the old woman, and she's like, you know, what did she say, like 50 flies, like what? Right. What is going on here? It was Lynchian. Like in a lot of cases, it was very Lynchian, and it was just like, yeah, it had like this weird vibe about like, you know, like the teacher. I mean, there was always something off about the senior, you know? Sure. Like, but I mean, yeah, where do you, like the hair coat, like the coat made of human hair, and then the dog coat, as she was like pointed out.
For one shot.
Right, yeah, just the one shot, like the dog has the human hair coat on, which is just like a, you just really unpack that.
Well, dog size, not the one that he was wearing.
But it's a dog who's wearing a dog size coat made of human hair.
Yeah, Michael's hair.
Yeah, like that's.
Why don't you pull back for a second and explain the plot?
I don't
to
even
the people that haven't seen this movie.
Well, and to even I think even at first and just kind of looking at it as a whole, it reminded me of other things like you know, on the surface level, I was thinking at the beginning, this is like Gilmore Girls or something. I had no idea where it was going to go, but it just kind of seemed like just a lot of, I guess you could just say like character studies and build up and getting to know these people just living their regular lives. Yeah. Nothing was happening. I didn't know where it was going.
It did
other than Michael
Right.
The boy who, when they were drawing the dogs in the drawing class with the senor, then he did the flames. You're like, oh, is this like a kid possessed, or is there something going on in his life? You know, I know that his mom went to Australia for a while. But I was thinking of that. I was thinking like Degrassi High. I was thinking of, and then once it started to get weird, I was thinking of Something Wicked This Way Comes, to where it's one of those, I can completely understand what you're saying, Sean, is like if I saw it at that age, it would, and no one else has heard of it, it also reminds me of a lot of the PBS programming that I used to watch that none of my friends would watch other than Fred, my best friend at that time. We would watch things like Tripods. We would watch Red Dwarf. We would watch pretty much anything that was on PBS that, you know, we'd be exposed to and we'd talk to other people about, and they'd be like, I have no idea what you're talking about. So we'd always kind of troll the programming schedule to see if those shows would be on again. Usually during the like the pledge weeks or something. Right. And that's kind of how that felt. It felt like one of those PBS production type things that maybe aired maybe like once or twice, got in little kids' heads, and for decades since.
Oh yeah.
You know, what would you call it, a Mandela sort of thing, or
well, that's what I was feeling like definitely at the beginning when you're saying like that movie doesn't exist.
There's no way,
right?
I mean, because if you explain the plot to somebody who doesn't know this movie,
they're
like, there's no way that was made into a children's story,
you
know, and you have to have fabricated this,
like the Stephen King thinner version, but with hair.
Yeah, so
or
in
you're
some ways
combining 5 different movies in your
absolutely.
head, you know, and
I guess because I do want to talk about specific moments, but I guess to give the overall
give an outline.
You've got these 2 kids and their dad, and the mother is absentee. You don't really understand where she is. I guess you kind of pick up that she's in Australia, but there seems to be something else going on there. It's not just that like she's away. She seems to be gone for a long time in a way that's like messing the kids up,
right?
And like almost like messing the dad up. Like she left him.
Well,
or something.
Initially we didn't know if she was dead,
right.
If they were separated, because it almost seemed like the dad was living,
absolutely,
or like sleeping in the attic, but that wasn't the case.
But and he's like an absentee in many ways, and like the sister has almost taken like this
maternal
role, and like this little girl, she's like wearing the mom's robe and she's cooking the breakfast and she's like trying to take care of the dad, and there's definitely something like odd going on in terms of their family relationship, but then like the little boy, he has a friend named Kanye, and he's like the coolest little kid. That kid is like rad, like really like awesome best friend, like dresses like a break dancer, like
what he got his Rex Harrison hat.
Yeah, exactly. So like he's got, his friend, but so basically I mean, ultimately, like they go to school. The kid says like he's like drawing flames, like and then they talk about that they saw this house burn down earlier, and like people died in it. And so they go to this house where the house burned down, and then like the kid like crawls inside of it. Not Connie, like the main kid. He like crawls inside the house and he sees something that scares him, and you don't see what he sees, but he like sees something that scares him so bad that like first it like makes his hair all frizz out, but then the next day he wakes up and his hair's all gone and he has no hair at all, and it's like not growing back, and he's like super messed up about it. And I think actually part of like what makes this so effective is like I think the kid's really good and he plays like traumatized really well. And so basically he's like messed up. He like won't go out of the house. They try and give him a wig. That doesn't work out well. And then he at one point earlier he gives money to a homeless person, and then he's visited in the middle of the night by
he gave the money to the homeless person before the building burned down.
Exactly. This was like a while back. Exactly. Yep. So then he's visited later on by like these two, one of the people is the homeless people and like this old woman, and they basically say, hey, here's this magic solution that you'll make your hair grow back, and gives him like all these ingredients and says, okay, make this, but don't use too much peanut butter. Otherwise, I can't tell you what's going to happen, but it's not going to be good, right? And then so he puts this solution on his head, uses, of course, too much peanut butter, and then his hair starts growing. He's super happy, but then it like doesn't stop growing.
And very quickly,
too. Like very quickly, his hair just grows and grows and grows and grows and grows. And then eventually, like, he gets kicked out of school because like they won't let him trim his hair.
Yeah,
and
too
then,
distracted.
Right. Ultimately, he gets kidnapped.
Well, I do have to interject because his hair is so disturbing to the teachers that they are saying that they will quit.
Exactly. So, and again, I want to drill down on specific moments, but just in the overall, ultimately what happens is that he gets kidnapped by the art teacher who is enslaving him to make brushes out of his hair. And he also has like all the kids, like 30 kids enslaved as well. And then they, basically have to break out. And also there's like magic painting. So that's like the overall, but like I mean, even just saying that, like, I'm like, holy shit, what?
Right.
Yeah, so like, I mean, that's the overall, but there's like specific moments, like, okay, so go back to like the performance of the kid, like he's so good, like when he's sitting there crying and he's like, I mean, I was like, dude, and I mean, like, I just got done watching Star Wars and, like, watched the travesty of this Jake Lloyd and just got reminded about, like, how terrible child acting can be, holy crap, that kid was really good.
And it probably was coming from an honest place because they actually shaved his head down to nothing.
Like, he's actually has his head shaved.
Yeah.
And at that time, that wasn't a fashion thing. I mean, that was, either you were really sick or you were some weird skinhead kid.
Well, look, the thing is, even if a kid's going to go buzz cut, it's going to be buzz cut. It's not going to be like down to the skin.
Right.
Because, that looks like you're a cancer patient. Like, that's just like not something a kid would do. Like his performance was good. And I think that at least is part of like why it might have been so effective as a child, because you're really putting yourself in that position and he's acting it so well that you're like, holy crap, like this is actually very affecting.
One, especially at that age. So I even wonder too if like some of it had to, not just with the mom leaving the country for a while and they're just adapting, but I'm sure he's going through the puberty thing again with with his friend Connie, where he wanted, we'll get to that too, but he wanted pubes once he saw the results of the peanut butter solution.
Yeah, absolutely.
He certainly got them.
And now, some casual, awkward talk about a tween boy growing pubic hair. Enjoy.
All right, so left out in the recap.
Yes, tell us about the pube scene.
His friend Connie, he's like, hears about like the peanut butter thing. He's like, well, I rubbed this stuff on my head and it made my hair start to grow. And he's like, can I get some of that? He's like, why? He's like, well, because I want to make some. He's like, but it'll make your hair grow. He's like, yeah, it's what I want, down there. And I'm like, what? This is a kid's movie.
At first, I thought it'd be a beard, like he wanted to get a beard or something.
Yeah, no, he wants to get a beard, all right.
Yeah,
for sure. And I'm like, that is so. I can't believe they just have like this little boy talking about like I want to grow pubic hair, like in a kid's movie.
It's quite possible that obviously I saw this so young. That this movie might have been where I thought it was falling.
It is.
I thought it was.
Are you losing your hair?
It might have been the first time that I knew what pubes were.
Right.
Or what would have made me
You didn't think it was like
question.
his leg hair or something?
Well, no, it's just, being that young, I had no concept that there probably was going to be pubes at some day or what pubes were.
Because it's like obviously not leg hair. Because if it was leg hair, he would have said my legs. He wouldn't have said down there, right? Like, so there's no question about what he's talking about.
Correct.
No, not at all.
None at all. And there's like parts where like his friend is running around and it's like coming out of the bottom of his like pants.
Oh yeah, you see it like
Yeah, and he's sitting there
like curb feelers.
He like wakes up in the middle of the night and he's got like sweatpants that are like bulging up from all the pubic hair,
which is luscious. By the way,
shit! Yeah,
just
it's
shiny.
It's like
it's a healthy coat.
It's like
he's Asian.
Yeah, it's
and very very black straight hair. So I mean, those pubes are going to be
and then
top notch.
Yeah, you see, he's like wills it to stop with his mind, and it stops as like it listens to him, and that was like I was like at the first second I was like, holy shit, he's gonna be able to control it, like because
he woke up and he was uncomfortable,
right?
And he said itchy, scratch, he's scratching, and puts his feet on the floor, and then more is starting to move. The hair's coming out, the pube hairs are coming out, and just kind of slithering around and growing, and he just says stop,
right?
Stop. And they kind of just slow down.
Yeah.
Just kind of like,
and never mentioned again.
Never mentioned again.
Never mentioned.
That's it. Yeah, that was it. That was his.
That was maybe a smart move on behalf of the.
Well, yeah, because
production.
They can't have two.
Because I was really concerned once he was captured. Even though we're kind of jumping ahead, but once he got into the child enslavement, if he discovered those real strong black luscious pube hairs, which is much different, like what do you call it, like tensile to it, to make like brushes with that would just be like, it's like horsehair, pretty much.
And that would be a hell of a thing, It could be, an art teacher enslaving a bunch of kids to make pube art brushes,
right? And even just more uncomfortable than it already was in general.
Right. Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And it was like, but yeah, the idea, that's the thing, right? It's like there's this parents or adults. It kind of reminds me, what it reminds me of a lot. It was like It Chapter 1, or like really how the book is in It, which is like that it's like it makes it all the scarier because all the adults are like shitty and they kind of don't care about the kids, and there is this kind of feeling that goes through a lot of this movie. It's like that like this kid's obviously going through something and like they're not really trying to find a solution for him.
Right.
In fact, his friend is trying to help him by like chopping his hair off like as it's growing, and then the parents or the teachers say, oh, well, the snipping sound is bothering them, and they say that if you come back in the class, then they're not going to go back. And it's like, dude, that's so fucked up.
Well, and Michael was so articulate, and he was very matter of fact, saying, hey, this is what's happening, this is what I got to do. There's like really no way around this.
Yeah.
And I want an education.
Right. He specifically says that
I want to be at school.
He's like, I want an education.
Everyone got his back too.
Sir, for 2 weeks now I've been bald. We did everything to get my hair back. Nothing worked. At last, I tried this extremely dangerous mixture. It worked, but now my hair won't stop. My only chance is for this guy to keep on cutting. Please let me stay. I want to be educated.
Quiet.
Not just hairy.
Quiet.
So it's got very much this, this like, and I guess I would identify with that as a kid too, right? Is like the parents don't have your best interest in mind, and you can only really trust your fellow students. And, there is this kind of like actually a little bit like radical bent to the film as well.
It's a mixed message there too. Because these kids that cheered him on during his, I want to, I need to learn, his Elephant Man speech there.
Yeah.
Commanding respect are the same kids that were, chasing him down, calling him names when he was wearing a wig.
Yeah. No, that's a good point.
So it's,
yeah.
I
don't know if those are the same kids.
That was the rival school, the soccer team.
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
In the blue uniforms.
Yeah, because I think it might have been like the other kids, and then the kids from his own school were actually kind of supportive of him.
Gotcha.
And those are the ones that, they ended up rescuing at the end, right?
Yeah.
but yeah, and so there's the dream sequence, because that's the thing, is like as his hair is growing and he's trying to figure out solutions for his hair, and he's like, he takes it all and he like ties it up so that he can sleep, and he like has it hanging, and he like has these dreams, which I'm sure are probably like partially that whole like half awake, half asleep thing of like you're feeling your hair being pulled and you're like asleep, and he has like these dreams of like dogs pulling at his hair. I mean, let's talk about like the two ghosts, and that sequence is like, I feel was so surreal and kind of terrifying, is that like he wakes up in the middle of the night and there's just like these two old homeless people like in his house, and they're like rifling through all of his stuff, and they're just like taking his food kind of, and and they're just like doing all these things, and him, basically give him the solution, but like the woman, she's like kind of being mean about it, and she's like, here's the solution, and it's like, you didn't say that right, you need to repeat after me. But I love the part of like, because then he ends up like getting the stuff, like, and it's like rotten egg and earth and like 5 dead flies and like all this icky stuff, that I'm sure a young boy would just love, it's like all kinds of gross stuff. But then he like makes the solution, and then his sister and his father think he's like going crazy, so they throw it down the toilet.
Well, that he's going to drink it.
Yeah, that he's going to drink it. So they throw it down the toilet, and he's like really sad because he lost it. And then like the two ghosts visit him again in the middle of the night. And I love just like the part where the old woman, she's like, sometimes I'm nice and sometimes I'm not.
Right.
And she's like, and today I'm not, and then like and I was just like, that's like, there's something like so like fiercely original and like I don't know, like very like on primally disturbing about those two old ghosts that just really kind of messed with me.
Well, and ghosts in general, and like any other film that you've ever seen, are either very docile, trying to break the curse sort of thing, or the embodiment of evil. Yeah. And that's not what these were, just like hobos that went on living when they were dead, and just being themselves.
And kind of like kind of a Scrooged moment. Kind of reminded me.
Well, and I love the idea that it's like, you helped me, and so I'm going to help you, but like I'm also going to like go into your house in the middle of the night. I'm going to like steal your stuff. I'm going to like rifle through your food. It's like, it doesn't give you this whole like, they're nice.
Which isn't addressed either.
Yeah.
They come into the house, they steal the food. They're ghosts. They don't need food. And there's never a payoff to that. Like, where'd all this food go in my kitchen the next day or something? Or I can't find this. What happened to it? Nothing.
Yeah. But it does have this kind of like fairy tale logic to it. I like, because he's like, you're going to wake my parents. And he's like, oh no, you only hear us because you see us. And he's like, watch, close your eyes. And the kid closes his eyes and he like slams the thing. You don't hear anything. And then when he opens it up, then he hears stuff again. And I'm like, that's such like a crazy, just like a really interesting idea for a ghost that I've never heard. Like, I've never thought of that idea that like if you don't see it, you can't hear it. But that's a really fascinating idea. So like there's just a lot of really, really interesting ideas in this movie that really, it's like, as just like, when it started, I'm like, what is this an after school special? Like, is that what this is? Right. And then, with at the very beginning, it said, what was it? Stories for Children number whatever? Or
number
something?
2?
Tales for All number 2.
Okay, Tales for All number 2. Yeah. So you're saying this is like a series of films?
Yeah, it's a series of films, and most of the, I mean, this is obviously a Canadian producer that assembled these films together. The country that brought you Powderheads. Peanut Butter Solution. This was the only thing that's number 2 about this was the second movie in the series. There's no sequels. There's no continuation.
What was the first?
The Dog That Stopped the War.
Okay.
Which also is something that I've been trying to track down. I think I've seen it when I was a kid.
Right.
So it's not called Peanut Butter Solution.
No, they're like all called
the Peanut
something
Butter
different.
Solution. It's essentially the chapter.
Right.
Like, here's story 1.
So like Goosebumps.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It seems like an anthology thing.
Okay. Right? Yeah, that's what I was confused by, because you said they were
connecting threads.
Yeah.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is because I was confused when we first sat down, started playing, and then I said, "Oh, this is number 2," and then we just were like into the movie. We didn't really talk that much.
Right.
And I thought, okay, and you said that they were doing this all the way up until I think 2008 is what you said, or something like that,
something around there.
And so then I'm like, is like number 26 or some crazy number. Anyways, I was like, well, okay, this is one thing. Are they doing the peanut butter solution for every single one of those? Like, this is like a hair anthology and the saga of the peanut butter solution.
No connecting thematic elements other than the producer, and that's what he wanted to make. He wanted to make movies for children.
Okay.
So so this was his line. He made other movies too, but this was his line of children's movies.
So as opposed to like having, the cool cat being the through thread, it's just,
exactly.
It would just be like, the Daddy Derek like doing like his own things for every
but not getting
episode,
in front of the
but not.
Yeah, as if he was just producing all of them. Yeah, and I one of the moments that I found like also deeply disturbing. Basically, they go into this room and it's like all these paintings and they're like animated and like alive, but like his dog is in every single one of them. And there was something so fucking creepy to me about all of these different pictures and like his dog just sitting there staring at you in every single one of them. Like it kind of reminded me of this Stephen King story called The Sun Dog. I don't know if you're familiar with, but it's like basically it's like they take a picture and every time they take a picture is this dog in this picture, even though the dog's not really there. And it just has this like, crazy imagery of just this dog who like never really has been a malevolent force in the film, but yet is still like the pet of this like really messed up bad guy kind of, and then like just there in the imagery almost like it is kind of standing guard there, like they can't escape because the guard dog is there in every single one of them.
I expected that to pay off somehow.
But I almost like that it didn't, because it's just this other weird little thing that just kind of makes you feel a little bit awkward. And there was like also there's the part where, so like in order to trick him, Connie starts calling him dad, and he's like, I want you to be my dad, I want you to be my dad. And then he becomes like almost like this, this funny kind of like comedic character, and he starts painting, and he basically, Connie tricks him into painting a house where the Fright is, and that's like where the kid lost his hair originally because he saw the Fright, and so he's like painting it, but he's like doing it and it's like playing like happy music, and he's suddenly becoming like all friendly and everything, and he's like painting the stuff and the kids are laughing and they're clapping, and then like like one of them says like oh well he's and he's like, oh well, you're not really gonna say that he's your dad, right? And he's like, but he was nice after you said that. And he's like, yeah, but don't you remember all the terrible things he's done? And again, not really paid off, but like this really interesting question of like, well, is the villain like only a villain because he's not loved? And rather than just drill that down and say this is the moral, and if he would have been loved, he wouldn't have been the villain, like that's just left out there as just this little idea of a question that you have to think about later on
and interpret for yourself. And the same thing with the dog. I almost think like the Golden Compass, or what's the new show that they're doing now?
Dark Materials.
To where you have like a familiar or a spirit animal type thing. I wish they would have dove a little bit deeper with that. I mean, especially like maybe showing some protective, like kind of magical sort of thing with the Signor. Like if he like stepped outside of bounds, like the dog would like actually like put Signor back in place because for some reason like the dog's soul has to be attached to these paintings in some way. Like make it like go like deep type stuff, because why would you continue to have the dog in these fantastical paintings that you can walk into? So I mean, what's the connection to that?
In a way, I kind of like that because it leaves those questions open. And like I'd made this little joke earlier, but so the guy goes in there, so the senor goes in there into the painting where the house is, and he goes in and he sees the fright, and then he loses his hair, and then the kid's like, oh, I want to go in there and I want to see what the fright is, and then Connie's like, no, what are you doing? Don't be an idiot, because then you're going to end up doing. He's like, no, it's fine. It's passed to him now. Right. And I made this like It Follows joke because it's like but it does what it made me feel like. It's like this curse that you pass to another person, and it was like the curse is like you see the fright and then you lose your hair, and I guess that's the curse, right? But it's like I made this, that's one of the things I love about It Follows is that like it's something that doesn't answer all the questions. Sure. And so it forces you to have these conversations later and be like, well, what if this? What if that? Like, where do you think it might have come from? And it gives you just enough to be intrigued, but then also doesn't answer its questions. And I feel the same way about this.
So Peanut Butter Solution then is literally the link between It Follows and Under the Silver Lake.
Wait, what? Yeah. Wait, but
Under the Silver Lake's just full of a bunch of weird characters.
Exactly.
That walk in and out of the story, and sometimes
yes,
you never know where they're really coming from.
Yeah, but I mean, and look, I think it's a fine line. I mean, there's certain things like like certain films come out, and I'm like, how the hell did he make all those spaceships come up from up the freaking ground? How are they being staffed? Like, what the hell? Just certain movies, I might say things like that. But certain things, I'm like, I don't mind this. Like, I don't mind it being oblique. I don't mind it, like, because also it's something that's not expected to be at all close to real, right? This is like kind of like a fable. And in the fable, you have to say like, well, what does this mean? Like, what is it really supposed to make me feel? Like, as a kid, what is it supposed to make me think? And I like the idea, like I was reading a little bit of thing, like the filmmaker was like, I wanted to make something that was frightening for kids, but I also wanted them to see that like the things that frighten you really are nothing at all, and it's like, and they kind of go with that idea later and saying that like, oh, the fright was just this, I wasn't that scared. But then I'm like, but yeah, there's also like a kidnapping dude, like you should be scared of some things, a
kidnapper that's kidnapped at least 20 kids from the same school district,
right? And
no one's out looking for
them. Yeah. And like, remember when they go into the warehouse and there's just like the weird hallway made of net and like old white hair that's attached to it for no reason? It's never explained. It's just like,
well,
what?
And why were they making a bunch of like shirts made out of human hair?
It's like the guy was like obsessed with hair. I almost think like, or was it that like he was trying to make like fur coats? Like he was like wearing it almost because like he knows that he has an endless supply of hair, and then he can like maybe make a business by like look at these in vogue like fur things.
He was fired from his job,
right?
Being a teacher.
You can only push so many brushes in your small Canadian town too,
right?
I mean,
but remember they talk about like the principal talks about. She's like, I've discovered, it was said that you're not. Really an artist.
Finally did a background check on you.
Exactly, but you're not really an artist. That you
pre-internet,
right? And that you change your appearance
4 times.
So the idea is that he's been like going from town to town.
Your name has changed,
right?
Your appearance has changed.
Senor isn't even his real name,
right?
I mean, it's just what he calls himself.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a fascinating film. So I'm.
And
really
then
glad,
the art. Purveyor, what would you call him? It was actually like his
brother,
his twin.
His twin is non-identical twin.
Not fraternal. What?
Yeah,
what is the word?
Fraternal.
Where they don't look? Is it?
Yeah.
When they don't look the same.
Yeah.
I didn't really know what the motivation to keep him quiet. And again, it's like one of those things. It's like, how far does this go back?
The motivation to keep him quiet is he's making magical paintings.
Right.
That's going to outsell
with those
everything.
Brushes. Yeah. But why kidnap the children? He could just kidnap Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Wait a second. What? Wait. What does is the hair magical?
Yeah. Well,
that's what I'm getting. Is that the hair
brush he makes from the magical hair seems to make magical.
Well, what does he need all those other kids for? Because I mean, that's
yeah.
to make
That's
those
really risky.
brushes.
He could make those fucking brushes.
Yeah, but the hair is growing so quick.
Yeah, but that's where I come down. It's like a fable.
Yeah,
like, I mean,
it's-
at that point, it's like that. I think that at that point, like, you are supposed to just
I'm asking too many questions.
view this as kind of like a Pied Piper kind of a situation, you know. And I think the more important thing is the idea that, like, you know, that also that they end up getting free. And it was like one of them, it was like the same guy. And if you really think about Kanye, like, as a character and what he represents, like, he's the one, he doesn't give in to, like, the hair growing. He's just wills it to stop. He says, no, stop, which maybe if the other kid would have worked as well, but he didn't even think to do it.
Sure.
The one kid comes in, you know, Kanye comes in and he rescues all of them because he tries, and none of the other kids try, you know, and he is the one who's very willful, and he's like there to say, like, yo, you know, by the way, set yourself free, you know, don't become a victim to this stuff, and, like, set yourself free. And I think that he's a very consistent character in that way, like, in the way that he always, like, has his friends back, that the fact that he's always, like, standing up for him, that he's, like, trimming his hair, like, you know, he's, like, a really great character. And I mean, if you're going to look at this as, like, a children's thing, like, he's somebody you would want kids to emulate, you know, you'd want them to be like that guy, because he is a, you know, real good stand-up ass
For
character.
Sure. I mean,
And I'm curious about him, considering that he always showed up at Michael's house, like, every day, all day. In the morning, would have, I don't know, breakfast and lunch and dinner, and
Right.
like, he never went home. But then it was established later on when he was asking Senor to be his dad, and they're like, "Oh, he's the greatest liar ever, isn't he?
Right.
Do you not have anything?" He's like, "Shh."
Right.
You know, so I don't know, like, what his again. It's like asking more questions,
Yeah.
even though it is what it is, but I don't know what, where, how.
I like the one little moment too where it's like the dad who's, like, always kind of a dick to Connie. Like, at one point he's like, you know, I'm sorry, I haven't been nicer to you. You know, like, there's actually a little moment where he's like, hey, by the way, like, I've been.
Well, because he
asshole
told
to you.
him to just go home. It's like,
Yeah.
why are you always here?
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
away.
yeah, totally.
But he's there all the time.
Right. Right.
because he's a single dad trying to run the house, and other kids are eating all their family's food.
That's a good point.
The sister's running the house, I think.
That's true.
He's just
Right.
paying the bills,
Right. Right.
but not selling the painting for,
Right, yeah.
the
Not-
$6,000 and then getting
Not
the
selling his
$4
crappy
grand.
painting for $5,000.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
for sure. I'm really glad we watched that. It was a really, I mean, it's like, especially like as it sinks in, I'm like, that's a really kind of special movie.
Yeah, it's a
And,
sink-in one.
Yeah, I can't imagine having that shit laid on my head as like a 7-year-old. Like, I mean, but whatever. I mean, I fucking watched Return to Oz as a little
Yeah.
kid. Like, fuck.
Yeah.
I just rewatched that movie. I'm like, what the fuck were people showing that movie to little kids?
80s
Like,
movies had balls.
Yeah,
you know, for
absolutely.
kids.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm glad for it. You know, don't get me wrong. Like, I wouldn't want to make my kid, if I ever had one, like, not watch shit like that, because I watch shit like that and it was fine. But still, like, that movie messed with me now. Like, I can't imagine. You know, like, seriously, if I was like an actual little kid, like, I'd be freaked the hell out.
Cultfollowing.co. I mean, really, what else could you say about this?
Go check it out.
Other than the fact that we've all clearly rubbed the peanut butter solution on our beautiful faces, especially Adam.
I need help getting it up here. If a rotten egg is all it takes, man, I'm willing to make that sacrifice.
Good luck with that.
Bye.